Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Nerdy Up North podcast, the Nerdy podcast hosted by two Northern Nerds. I'm one of your hosts, Sam.
And I'm the other host, Paul. And this week, we've got a guest who isn't a Northern nerd. We've got a Southern nerd today. And it's a very lovely lady that helped me getting into streaming and podcasting. And like I say, she gave me loads of advice at the start, which was very welcome because, to be honest, I didn't have the foggiest what I was doing. It's the lovely Emily. So, hello, Emily.
Hello.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself, like what you do? Because I know you are a huge nerd in your own right, and you've got a lot of different fingers in pies, shall we say?
Fingers in pies. So, can you not? Sorry. So sorry. I'm a streamer. I stream all sorts of games. I don't just like stick to one game, but I like to play stuff like Skyrim mostly, Sea of Thieves, stuff like that. I also have an Etsy shop because I make stuff. I like to make like handmade notebooks and stuff that look like spell books. I'll show you some.
Out of my street.
I'll grab some in a minute. They're just above my head. All sorts of things. I'm a gamer. I love films. I love reading. I try and do everything. I spread myself far too thin. So
yes.
Yeah.
Paul, make sure on the video you put all of our links.
I'll do my best. There's quite a lot.
Quite a few, sorry.
Sorry. And I know Emily launched something this year as well with the lockdown situation. She was involved in an online gaming magazine, which I think there's been a few issues out now, hasn't there?
Yeah, the Gamer Guide. We've got 3 issues out now. It's bi-monthly, so it's every 2 months.
All right.
Yeah. Because we're all like still working full time and everything, and we're all streamers as well that do it, so we don't have a whole lot of time, so we've done it every 2 months just to like not stress ourselves out. But yeah, it's really, really good. Yeah.
No, I remember like I say when I saw it get launched, I think I've read the first 2 issues and it is very professionally done. Like I say, I know I shouldn't come as a surprise. I know you are, like as you said, very professional in everything that I've seen you do. But that magazine was, like I say, tipped up. And like I say, I know I've worked in web design and graphic design, and it was far above what, like I say, I've seen in a long time. So well done for that.
Thank
you. My contribution. Well done. Skyrim, never ever played. My husband loves it. But is it quite fitting for today's topic? It's like
it's very
fun. It's fantasy. It's
hell yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, today's
topic is Paul's worst nightmare.
I wouldn't go that far. I do enjoy the Lord of the Rings saga, shall we say? Or how would you describe it? Trilogy? Or now the Hobbit came out? Is it? Because I know with Star Wars you would describe it as a saga, but how would you describe Lord of the Rings? A trek?
It's still a trek.
It's like Lord of the Rings is its own thing, and then the Hobbit's its own thing. Yeah.
I totally agree. I have the song, the one of the main songs stuck in my head, and had it stuck in my head all day. Because I do listen to the soundtracks.
Me too. It's so relaxing,
isn't it? Especially when you're in Hobbiton and you can hear Gandalf just humming along.
Yeah.
I love it. But I've had the main song stuck in my head all day, and it's taken everything in me not to burst out into song. Everything.
Well, we might get a performance out of you later. So
maybe. But yes, today's big nerd talk is all about the Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings. Now, not the books, because I haven't read them.
I'm actually in the middle of reading them at the moment. So
I have them right up there. I'm halfway through one of them, and I am terrible when it comes to fiction. You give me a biography, true crime. I'm into death at the moment. So that's you give me anything to do with that and I will read it straight away. But when it comes to fiction, I struggle very hard to like stay in it.
I enjoyed
And
the
I really
books. Yeah, I didn't didn't hate them. Like I've read them a few times. I think I first read them when I was about 11 or 12. I got picked on mercilessly at school for reading them, but yeah. Has been the closet comic book geek living in Riot. I had to be so, but yeah, I like to say, but
you need that on a t-shirt.
The only thing that kind of threw me a little bit weird differently the books than other things was there's a lot of songs and a lot of like little ditties that are in the books that again probably for the time was something entertaining, but to me it kind of threw us in. I didn't really exactly like them. I skipped a few pages whenever there was a little rhyme and when they were going on the little walks.
I'm the little walks. I'm the opposite. See, I like little stuff like that because that's attention to detail, and that's what Tolkien is amazing at. I am a huge Tolkien. Like I love Lord of the Rings, but I love that man's brain more than anything.
Me too.
I have my Tolkien jumper on today, my signature Tolkien.
I was going to wear my Arwen necklace, but the chain on it broke, so I couldn't wear it.
I was half expecting you to wear the like Elven ears or something, Emily. Like...
I was fully. You know what? I have a. It's technically a dark crystal one, but like it's a green poncho, and I was like, oh my god, it looks just like the ones the hobbits wear. I was going to wear it, and I was like, no, I'm going to overheat. I'm not going to do that.
Very true. So before we get into it as well, I know Sam likes to do a little disclaimer just so that we don't get much hate.
It's just to say that all of these thoughts are our own. And please do not come for us in the comments or on Facebook if you do not like what we say. And I say that with a lot of love because everyone is entitled to their opinion. And that was it. That's I normally have it written down what I say. Basically, we're just trying to keep toxicity out of fandoms. Let's just be what's the word I'm looking for? Kind.
Respectful.
Kind in yes. You can tell I have not come prepared today because I said to myself, I am going to this is Lord of the Rings. I can talk Lord of the Rings. I don't need my notebook, but my notebook has my disclaimer written on it.
Just before we get started as well, can you believe it's been 20 years since Fellowship of the Ring came out?
I know.
2001. Now that's going to make us feel old.
I need to ask, have you watched the reunion video?
Yes.
No.
Oh my god, I literally cried the whole time.
Cried from start
they were like,
to finish.
Let's get Elijah in that in, and I was like, okay, cool, yeah, and then they got Ian in, and I was like, okay, yeah, and then they started bringing in all the others, and I was like, okay, I can't do this.
What broke me more was when Liv Tyler still remembered her dialogue and still did it verbatim, and I was sobbing my heart out. And she had a sword too, and I was like, oh my god.
I'm convinced that she's an alien.
Yeah,
because she just doesn't age.
No, she doesn't.
She looks exactly the same.
She uses the sequence of Paul Rudd. That's what the thing. They're both vampires. Her and Paul Rudd never age.
So, can you remember when Fellowship of the Rings came out?
I remember being very excited at college when they announced it because, I think Empire Magazine done a big spread on it and what was going to do. I think they announced it as the unfillable. I'll get the word out one day. The unfilmable film will be filmed.
Unfilmable film. That's
the one. Yes. Smile.
I was just going to let him crack on with it and see how far he got.
Sorry, I'm used to stuttering, so it's fine. But yes, so that was the big spread, and so when they announced Peter Jackson as the director as well, because that was a complete left field, especially the director of Braindead doing this epic, and especially going to split it into 3 films. Everyone said it can't be done in 3 films. There's no way it'll be made. I think going back at the time. It intrigued us because I wanted to see what was going to be, and when it came out, you couldn't get a seat in the pictures. It was booked out, almost impossible, like say, especially for the Fellowship of the Ring. And I remember going to see it with my dad at Bolden Cinema, next to where I live now, really. But my dad, being my dad, fell asleep halfway through, snoring his head off.
Mint. That's my dad all over.
But seeing it on the
big... out? Was it 99 it came out?
2001.
2001.
Yeah.
Oh no, it started filming. Yeah.
No.
Was it the same year as Harry Potter?
Ooh.
I'm sure it was the same year. I will.
It was a close one. Because that was when all the fantasy films. After the books. Yeah, because then they tried like doing that with a lot of other ones that didn't really make the grade, shall we say? But Harry Potter was a different kettle of fish. Like say, Harry Potter could have been a bad film and still would have made the film money. Like say,
Harry Potter came out in 2001, so it was just imagine the year.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Philosopher's Stone and the Fellowship of the Rings coming out at the same time. Fantasy heaven.
Two very separate fandoms, but very big fandoms as well.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And very different takes on the fantasy genre as well. There's more kiddie friendly. I'm going to say it as well, Lord of the Rings done the special effects a lot better. I know Harry Potter grew with the special effects, but from the get-go, I've had to watch, I watched the Fellowship of the Ring this week just to try and recapture like how I felt when I watched it. And the special effects still holds up today, and you can't say that for many 20-year-old films. Because I think I had the argument on the Facebook group the other day, does special effects or practical effects have a better impact? And I think I said it as well, do you think you could make Lord of the Rings 20 or 30 years ago, not realising it was made 20 years ago?
I think it's just the amount of love that went into it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like as Peter Jackson said, I think he said that, yeah, it was a AAA film with the budget and everything, but it was made like an indie film.
Mm-hmm.
It was made with all the love and care you could possibly give it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's why it shows, like, even after 20 years, it shows through.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such a beautifully made film. All three of them are.
It's absolutely stunning. Can you remember, Emily, when you heard about it coming out?
No, because I was 5.
You were what?
I was 5.
Yeah, we were 19 and 20, Sam, so it's fine. No, I mean,
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
You just broke Sam's spirit.
I've never felt the crushing blow like it. You were 5.
I'm sorry.
So at least, to be fair, you could have seen it at the cinema. It was a PG. It was a PG, the first one when it first came out. So
can you remember what you saw at 5 years? 5 years old.
Yeah, The Land Before Time. I've had this discussion.
Let's not go down that path.
To be fair, I was really late to The Lord of the Rings. I say late. Obviously, the books have been out for a long time, so everybody's late. But no, in terms of the films, I was really late because I grew up surrounded by people telling me Lord of the Rings is boring.
Right.
So I never got the chance to really watch it at home or anything because I was always told it was boring and it was crap. And I was like, oh, but have you seen it? And they're like, well, no, but it's crap. And I was like, all right. And I just sort of accepted it. And then when I was like, oh God, I was really late. I think I was like 14, maybe.
Yeah.
It was just on, I think Return of the King was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing else on. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a go. So I clicked on it and I was hooked. The moment it came on, I was just glued to the screen. And I was like, this is amazing. And I ran upstairs to my sister and I was like, you're a liar. I was like, I hate you so much. She was like, why? She was like, it's boring. I was like, no, it's not. It's so good. And I watched all 3 after that, back to back.
That sounds like my sister. My sister hates it.
Yeah.
Hates it.
I can see Michaela not liking it, to be fair.
No, my sister really does not like it. We got into a massive fight. Like, me and my sister, we're best friends. And we got on really well, obviously as best friends and as sisters. But we had a massive fight. Like, huge. Like, I heard her. It still breaks my heart to this day that I attacked her over this film.
Oh, the rings.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because she pushed it and she pushed it and she pushed it. And I just snapped and I physically hurt my younger sister, and it was awful.
But that's what brothers and sisters do, though. They find
but that's it, though. We didn't. Me and Michaela have a very good technique of arguing. We say what we have to say, and then that's it. It's out in the open. That's it. It's done. It's just it. But this was too. I went too far over a movie.
You were passionate. You were just passionate.
I was an idiot. That's what I was.
But I think, sorry to go on there, because it was quite interesting with Emily's take about people saying it's boring, because it is quite a diverse film when it comes to fandoms as well, because it does have a huge following. But even on the Facebook group, the Nerdy Up North Facebook group, when you post a topic like what you don't like and what fandoms you're not into, Lord of the Rings does come up quite often. I think because, as I said, it's the three. I'll not slate it too much. I know you're excited. It is three very long films, and they're not, like, say, I would say a comfortable watch, because it is, like, say, as I said, hard work to watch them. You feel physically drained after you've watched them films as well.
I don't want to, because it's not like to insult people who don't like it, but it's like it's high fantasy. Mm-hmm. So, like, with Harry Potter, I would say it's not high fantasy because it's a little bit easier, it's more for kids. You can understand it a little bit better. It's not too complicated. Whereas Lord of the Rings, there's a lot to it. Mm-hmm. And even with the films, there's a lot to the films alone, but then when you read the books, and then when you read all of Tolkien's excerpts afterwards and all of that, and all the universe that he established, there's so much to it. Mm-hmm. So it's people from the outside looking in are probably looking at it nah, that's not a bit of me, that. It's a bit too
much work,
too involved.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I like that.
Totally right. It's a commitment.
Yeah,
that's how I always saw it. It's a full commitment. You go into it with you have to. You're not just following one story. Mm-hmm. You are following multiple stories that are interwoven with each other, but in some ways quite separate. Mm-hmm. But I always thought as a commitment. Mm-hmm. I think I told this story before on the podcast about me finding it. It was a poster. Mm-hmm. It was a promotional poster before I'd even seen anything about it. It was a promotional poster going to be used in the cinema that you saw it at, Paul. And I had no idea what it was. And it was my ex who said, because he worked at that cinema, and he got us tickets. And I saw The Fellowship probably more times than what I should have. But I was absolutely hooked. I have never shown emotion in the cinema before, up until that point. And when the scene with Gandalf, that was it. I was gone. But because when it comes to when I fall in love with something, I don't just fall in love with it. I fall hard, and I have to know everything. And that just started my little passion. But I must admit, it did fizzle out for a bit. I did leave the Rings for a long time, and it's only been in the last couple of years I've gone back and just thought, it still holds up. Two, I'm gonna say it, bold statement, but it is my favorite trilogy ever. Ooh. Ever. Because it is that in depth, and it's layered, and you're right, Emily, it's high fantasy. At its finest. I love it.
I'm gonna be controversial here and say, which is your favorite film out of the three?
Fellowship.
Really?
Yeah,
I think I've got to say Return of the King though.
So we're going to be different here, because that mine's.
I love all three equally, to be honest, but Return of the King, just because it was the first, and it's so back to front, I know, but it's the first one I saw, so it's the one that holds the most memories.
Yeah,
I
get that.
It was the gateway into it. Yeah, mine's the Two Towers. And I understand that as well, because Battle of Helm's Deep is one of the most cinematical, amazing pieces of work ever done. Yeah.
The fact that they use CGI, real life, practical, it's all in there, and you can't tell the difference between any of it. Mm-hmm. It's unreal. That, yeah, I do love the second, but it's just the Fellowship, that when they create the Fellowship, that scene alone is just such an emotional, I can't say it enough. I love this. I love it.
What I love, like the scene in Return of the King is when Pippin is singing.
Yeah.
And it shows like the montage of
Mhm.
like them getting ready to fight and stuff like that. And even then, like when I'd first seen it and I didn't really have much an attachment to the characters yet and stuff like that, I still felt really emotional in that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you see all of them like getting ready to fight and them knowing that it's not going to go well and stuff like that, it's just like, oh, so good.
No, I completely see that again. That scene, it's haunting. That's probably the best way I would describe it, because you can see the people not expecting to make it through, like say what's going ahead, and with the Mad King going all nuts as well. And it's just like I said, it's
Thranduil. He wasn't mad. King.
He was nuts.
He was the steward of Gondor. He wasn't king.
He was just in denial.
He was just a steward.
But I think with mine, like I said, had the like I said, the Battle of Helm's Deep with the two towers. It had the interesting aspects as well. It was the time when, like say, all the different things got split up and they start moving the pieces around the board a little bit more, and it started becoming a bit more interesting.
Yeah,
because there was elements of the Fellowship where I got a little bit bored. Not saying it's a boring film, but there's aspects where it kind of just goes on a little bit more, especially for film. Books fine because you got that layered textures and you can breathe, but sometimes with a film you wanted to move it a little bit faster pace, but then when they brought the extended versions out, that killed it for me. It's like I said, it was one of them films where I didn't want more, and I know they keep joking about, like I said, there's even other versions where there's going to be like 5 or 6 hours per film. That's me tapping out for that one. But no, I think for the time though as well, these films are ultimately groundbreaking, and there's nothing being filmed. I know they brought the Hobbit out, which again had its own issues.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
but the 3 films has never been topped, I think, with the spectacle and the things that they've brought out. I know they try to do similar with Game of Thrones. Like I said, well, no, not the film-wise, but the fantasy, that to bring the element of the Lord of the Rings over 3 films, had to do over 7 seasons as such. So it just shows you hard work. That had a...
And they still didn't do it properly?
No. Well, they did up until, like I say, they got bored and rushed it. But that's another argument.
Come on, I'm not getting into it. I have already lost my temper with this series before. I am not doing it again. I need to remain calm because I am talking about something I love. What was I going to say? Yeah, if you want to listen to me have a massive rant about Game of Thrones, go back and listen to our top 5 TV shows. Because for all it was one of my top 5, I still went off on one.
It was interesting, but yeah.
In terms of like the extended cuts and stuff, put it in reverse about the stuff they cut out. Like, I feel like they shouldn't have cut out Tom Bombadil.
A lot of people say this.
I don't think they should have done that. Now that I'm reading them, and I've actually passed the first instance that they've met him, I'm like, oh, yeah, he's quite significant. Why did they cut him out?
Yeah, I watched an interview with Peter Jackson over that, because a lot of people say that, and he says, what significance does he bring to the actual story? And I'm like, I've not read the book, so I can't answer that. But it has to mean something if a lot of people in the fandom think the same thing.
It's, from what I understand, it's the whole mystery behind Tom Bombadil that people love, because nobody knows what he is. He's not human. He's not a hobbit. He's not. They don't know what he is. Like, they literally ask him. Frodo asks him, "What are you?" And he's like, "I am."
Oh, that's amazing.
And they're like, oh, okay. And it's like, okay, cool. And he's married to Goldberry, who is the River Daughter, and that's never explained what that means either. Yeah. But basically, he's so old that he said that he was around before the elves even arrived. He was around before any of the stuff with not Sauron, the one before him. I can't remember his name.
Oh, I can't think.
Markov or something. I can't remember his name. The big bad. I just call him the big bad. Before he arrived, he was there before then, and like everyone's like, so what is he? Who is he? Who is Tom Bombadil? So that's why I think people wanted him in the film, because he's so mysterious. It probably would have provided that extra question to like reel people in, you know.
Oh, interesting. I think a lot of the, as you said, with the extended stuff that they cut out, it was more, like I say, little things that was extended. I think the one that stands out to me is near the end of the Return of the King, when they're going to go to the fight the Black Gates of Mordor, and then
the Mouth of Sauron.
Mouth of Sauron comes out. That was, I think, an element that I thought the film did miss originally, but again, going back to the best trilogy, Star Wars. Like I say, when George Lucas kept on tinkering and adding stuff, it lost its kind of magic, lost its flair to me. And like I say, I'm always a purist and enjoy that aspect as well. Yes.
What was I gonna? So, can I ask a serious question? Because I know my answer. Obviously, I know my answer. But who do you think is the real hero of the story?
Oh, it's got to be Sam, or
Yes.
Sam, or even in aspects, Gollum.
No, it's Sam.
Right. Okay. So.
I mean, that's the truest answer. It's Sam.
He's the most innocent and truest spirit in.
No, without him, he does not get to the top. Without him, he
you're
does
right,
not.
Sam.
He does not get to the top. He does not chuck the ring in. He doesn't get there in the first place. Without Sam, Frodo is absolutely nothing. Frodo is the carrier, because he is a little brave little hobbit, but Sam is the truest hero of that story.
Frodo would never have gotten there, because he would have been eaten by what's her face, the spider.
Shelob. Shut up.
Shelob, that's it.
I'm not scared of spiders, but that one did freak us out. I'll be honest. That was well done, but
Frodo would have died to her. So
he would have died to her. He would have caved because he had nobody there. He had nobody who loved him enough to stop him from doing it, because Gollum would have quite happily let the ring take him, because then he would have had a chance to get it for himself. Sam is the truest and purest hero of that story, and I love him so much. I'm so glad we share a name.
But I think Frodo did cave in at the end, though, because he wasn't actually going to throw the ring in, because it was due to Gollum biting his finger off in the end, in the most fun type of way. But yes, that's one thing I did want to touch on as well. As a cast, I don't think a film's been better cast since or before.
Wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing.
Yeah, totally agree.
Because normally you could go through a cast and say, I'd rather have this person in that role, or maybe change it around. But yeah, that's one thing I will always give Lord of the Rings. Everything to the person was done perfectly. And as you said, with Sam being the true hero, I've got to say, Goonies never say die.
Yeah, Sean Astin for the win. He did that. I think all of them did the parts amazingly. I love the fact that we've got a very young Carl Urban in there. Miranda, what's her surname? Miranda, she's in Sabrina. Miranda Otter.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was Sabrina. Yeah.
Yes, it is. She has one of the most badasses. She has one of the most badass lines in that whole film. But at the time, it used to make me cringe. Like when I first watched it, I used to cringe when she would turn around and say, "But I am not a woman," and and now I'm like, "Yeah, bitch, get him!" I absolutely loved it. That's all you're going to get out of me at the end of every sentence. Loved it.
That did not put us off, but Fellowship of the Ring at the end, when the goblins and the yokai were attacking the Fellowship, looking for the small ones.
Man meat.
When they done the overhead shot over the trees and it kind of floated, I even in the cinema and watched it in the big telly, I got seasick during that scene, because it's kind of like a floating. It's a queasy feeling, which I don't know, it's just a strange aspect. Again, I'm not trying to be the dick and say, oh, I hate these films because of this.
You are being very restrained. I mean, I have one little nitpick that I think actually, I don't know if it's the same in the books because obviously I can't compare, but it shortens the story unnecessarily, is the Army of the Dead. I absolutely hate that aspect, because if that was the case, and I know there's a lot of things that you pointed this out last week, Paul, where you says, well, if Gandalf had sent the eagles in the first place, we wouldn't have had this. And it's the same if the Army of the Dead was called up in the first place, the Battle of Helm's Deep would have been won quite easy. Actually, it would have just, if it was as easy as that, they could have done that in the first place. And I hated that they used it at the end. I just didn't. There's something icky about it, and I didn't like that. Yeah. Maybe because my husband's drilled it in my head that is.
I actually watched a video of this guy who's like an expert in all things Tolkien, and somebody asked the question like, so why don't they just use the eagles? Would have been easier. And he was like, I've got a couple of answers for that. He was like, firstly, it would have been a really boring story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that second of all, Sauron also has air infantry, so they would see, like, he would see them coming from miles away, and he'd be able to take them down. Thirdly, the eagles only turn up when they really, really have to, because they're not like regular eagles. They're kind of like the way Tolkien describes them is like they're kind of like angel figures in a way. They turn up when the dire need is like there, basically. So that's why they only turn up to rescue Frodo and Sam at the end, because
I like that.
There's no way out for them there.
I can't use that argument anymore then.
See, I always use if someone came to me with that argument, I'm like, well, it would have been a really shit story if that was the case, if it them came in straight away.
They just take the eagles.
They'd get the eagles, just shoot them on in. Yep. It would have been an absolutely shit story, but no, I really love that answer. I've not heard that one before.
Yeah.
Thing is, in the Hobbit, the Hobbit book, the eagles are slightly different.
So where were we?
Yes.
So yeah, the eagles in the Hobbit are actually described differently. In the books, the eagles actually belong to the Eagle Master, I believe. Like he's actually like this. I think. Well, the way he's described, I think he's just a dude. I don't know if he's an eagle himself, but he lives like up in like a really high perch on the side of the mountain, and he rescues them when they're up at all the dwarves are up in the tree and the tree is on fire, and that's when they turn up. But yeah, in the Hobbit, they were just actual eagles that just listened to the Eagle Master. But then I think Tolkien changed his mind in Lord of the Rings and made them like this more like ethereal kind of posse that just appear at the best of times. I don't know why I don't know why he changed that. He did change a lot of things from The Hobbit to Lord of the Rings, because he just decided to expand on things. But because in the Hobbit, the ring was not actually the One Ring at that point. He wrote the ring as just a magic ring that made him disappear, and it made him invisible. In fact, he described it like it would make him invisible, but if he stood in like light, you could just about see his shadow. He wasn't completely invisible. But then in Lord of the Rings, he was like, no, it's actually a power ring. He does go invisible, but he kind of goes into the Wraith world. It's like, that's that now.
They don't like say that's one of the things that it doesn't get explained. I'm really trying my best not to slag off the films. I really am. In the three films, like they say the One Ring to rule them all, but they don't actually say how or what powers it has to rule them all. Because I know, like say when Frodo or anyone puts the ring on, it goes invisible and they see the eye looking at them, but they don't really expand on what would happen if Saruman got the ring or what powers he would possess. Or
from what I understand, it's So they met. Okay, let me to help me with my memory here. So it was 9 rings for humans, 7 rings for the dwarves, and 3 rings for the elves, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then Sauron made the 1 ring to rule over all of them. So I think the point was to that ring. What is my neighbour doing? I'm so sorry. I don't know if you can hear that.
I'll just stop with Jamie.
the one ring is the one that will obviously control them all, but I think it's the only one that's capable of going between 2 planes of existence.
Right. Well, it explains itself in its one ring to control them, 1 ring to bind them, and 1 ring to what's in the darkness find them.
Yeah.
So it kind of does explain it within the that little speech there as to what the one ring does. If I get this, like you might. It would have been nice to. Do you know what? It just would have been nice to see Saruman in his action, like to actually see him at his full capacity, like his full power. I would have loved to have.
I know at the start when you see the battle, Saruman's got the ring on, and he's not invisible then.
But because he doesn't need to be.
So is it a choice? Can he control it to choose?
That's another thing though. Sorry, going back to Tom Bombadil, because when they first meet Tom Bombadil, he asks Frodo, because Frodo's like telling him all about what they're doing, and he's like, "Oh, let me see the ring," and Frodo just gives it to him, and he was shocked at that, because usually Frodo would be like, "Oh no," because of the way the power of the ring is, but he just gives it to him without thinking about it, and he was like, "Oh, I don't know why I did that." And then Tom puts it on his finger and nothing happens.
Right.
And he's sitting there and he's like, "Ha, funny." And then Frodo's really confused, because he's like, why does this have no effect on him? Like nothing is happening to him. He's not like getting possessive. It's not making him invisible. Why? And then Tom gives it back to him, and Frodo thinks that he gives him a fake ring, so he tests it and puts it on himself, and he goes invisible. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm invisible." So he tries to get up and like sneak away, and Tom goes, "Where are you going?" And he's like, "Oh my god, he can see me." Tom can see as well, so it's like
I am starting
maybe
to
Saruman's
understand.
the same.
I am starting to understand why a lot of fans are miffed that he's not in it. I'm starting to get it, because the way that you described it makes me want to go and pick the book up to know about this person. So I just remember this interview was like on the making of. You remember the extended editions, and they have like the making of them. And I was watching the Fellowship one, and that's probably as long as the movie itself. And he says there was no point in bringing this character in there because he has no relevance to the story, but that is relevant. That explains the ring much better, like in a better way than just it's an all-powerful ring that controls everybody.
Yeah. He does,
because it doesn't control everybody, because it didn't control
exactly.
him.
Like even though it's a minor role, you know, he appears, he does all this stuff with the ring, and then later on, I think somebody literally asks Gandalf, "Why didn't you just give it to Tom Bombadil?" Because he nothing affects him, because apparently they know what he is. We don't know what he is. But they're like, "Why don't you just give it to him?" And Gandalf was like, "Because he has no interest in it. He doesn't care."
Yeah.
Like literally Tom Bombadil's like, he's skipping around singing all the time, like he literally doesn't care. So he's like if we gave it to him, he probably would have put it on and then forgot about it.
I'm totally getting it. Like the more you're talking about it, the more I'm like, I get this, and I really want to see. This is what I need sometimes. I need someone to get me excited about reading fiction, and then I will, because now I want to know more. I'm going to have to read to find out more. I will probably end up reading them books after I finished my one on forensic psychology.
See, job's done.
Highly recommend. But like I've watched like a couple of videos of people making theories on what would happen if Gandalf took the ring.
Yeah.
Like if he decided to take it instead of Frodo, like what would happen to him? And it was like someone literally giving a play-by-play theory of what they think would happen. So it's like, oh, instead of like in this moment, that scared me. Sorry.
Bless. Is Jamie just feeling left out? He wants to make a cameo. Is that what it is? Come and give us something, Jamie.
Instead of instead of when Frodo goes to Rivendell in this moment, this is what would happen if Gandalf had the ring. Like it would be a completely different like time zone or whatever. And then they did it with Galadriel as well. So if Galadriel caved and didn't pass the test and took the ring, what would have happened?
Right.
Her one is the most interesting one to me because I love Galadriel. She's one of my favourites.
Yeah. I was going to bring her up because Kate Blanchett is absolutely stunning. Like, say, she is the most beautiful creature I've ever person in the world. And she, like, say, when you come to like nerd culture as well, she's been in, you name it, every aspect she's been a part of, like I say, and was absolutely wonderful in the MCU as Lady Death, Hela. But but that part where she played and when she was offered the ring, that was literally terrifying. When you see it,
terrifying.
It gives me goosebumps that when she does the whole, you would have a dark queen, and I'm like, literal goosebumps.
That all will love me and despair.
Yes. Yes, she is absolutely unreal. You are right though. She's like Liv Tyler. That woman does not age.
No, at all.
She's very feline looking as well. She looks like a cat lady. I think she would love cats as well. That's
she
why
looks like an elf.
Yes.
She's literally how I would picture an elf looking. It's exactly her face.
Was she in the reunion? She wasn't in the reunion, was she?
No, I think she was filming at the time when they did it.
They even had Sean Bean.
They had seen Bean. No, there's something about Sean Bean though. When he smiles, I feel a bit uncomfortable.
I get it.
I think I asked Jamie. I was like, "Is he a villain in anything?" Because I feel like he'd make a really good villain.
Everything. It's only been recent years that he's not.
I can't off the top of my head think of a film where he's a villain. I know he dies and everything.
Bond, James Bond.
Oh yeah.
There's quite a few. Like, he was known as quite a villainous because he died and everything. Oh, there was a TV show he did a couple of years ago. That's going to bug me, but he was a dick in that too, and he died in that as well.
I remember, like, say his most famous role was Sharp, where he just said bastard a lot as well.
There's a montage on YouTube for that. 10-minute montage of him just going bastard.
He's good at dying, isn't he?
Yeah, the Americans like to seem to kill him a lot. He seems like a nice guy. I don't see.
He doesn't see the problem in it though. He
seems like a total teddy bear. Like in the reunion, he was like one of those confused dads on Zoom.
Yes,
he didn't know what he was doing. But like I don't know. Every time he did his like regular toothy smile, I was a bit like.
I tell you what, it's not a geeky TV show. He's done a recent BBC dramatisation. It was like a 3-parter. I've forgotten the name of it.
It's with him from Lockstock, isn't it?
Stephen Pembridge.
That's it, yeah. No, yes.
Pembleton, I think. Maybe
from Lockstock.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of British films, but he was in I can't remember. He was in New Hellboy.
He was in Line of Duty.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about New Hellboy, please.
Oh no, but that's just made us laugh badly. But it's a 3-part documentary where he's a teacher who's an alcoholic who drives and kills someone, but he goes through the period and hands himself in, goes to jail, and you see his journey, and it's hard to watch, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best things I've seen Sean Bean do in a long time.
Just so some people don't come for us, it's Stephen Graham.
That's right.
Is it Time?
Time, that's the one. Yeah, it was called Time. Yeah.
He's in Snowpiercer as well. I didn't know that. The TV series with David Diggs. He's in that too, but he's a dick in that and all.
The only thing I've seen him in is the Yorkshire tea advert.
Yorkshire tea.
Recently.
That's how I describe, like, when people ask where I'm from, I'm like, just think Ned Stark's accent and just bring it up a little bit, and you're there. You're right there. But talking about Sean Bean playing the amazing Boromir. How awesome is the casting of Boromir and Faramir, though? They are
so good.
What's his name? Carl. Wow, really should have come prepared with at least names.
I'm really bad with names, so.
He's not even called Carl. He's called David. David Wenham is Faramir, and them two. I love the scenes when you see them as brothers and how much Boromir genuinely like loves his brother and protects his brother, because Faramir is like, you know, he's the black sheep. Like his dad hates him. It's awful how he gets treated.
Little stepbrother, like younger brother type of syndrome. But again, I can't believe we haven't mentioned him yet. But the great and wonderful Christopher Lee in the film as well, absolutely breathtaking. Everything he does in the film is menacing, is scary. Even from the opening when you see him with Gandalf, you think, "Oh, the mates."
The only man out of all of them who actually knew Tolkien.
Yes, he did. He did, and if you watch the making of them, he corrects everyone's pronunciations of everything. You had to see it the way Tolkien wrote it, and he was so precise on it. They said it was almost to the point of annoyance that he used to do it, but he knew what he was making. This wasn't, and he knew who it was going to. This wasn't something that it's not like comic books, where comic books are around for such a period of time and there's so many incarnations of it and people have grabbed onto it, and then you've got your film come out. This is literally a book that was brought out in the 50s that is now getting made into a cinematic release. So he knew what our audience it was targeting, and he wanted it as absolute perfection. And first person to say it, dead.
Yeah, he's dead.
I've just thought of another one as well, which is really sad. Is Ian Holm?
Yeah,
Bilbo.
Yeah,
there you go. That'll bring the mood down a bit.
But I think it was really good that actually they had Christopher Lee there, because him having known Tolkien means that he definitely, like you said, had an opinion on things. And I think it would have been really helpful to have him there and be like, do you think Tolkien would have liked that? Because he would have been like, nah.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was no Shrieking Violet as well, so he would have definitely given his opinion on
You can hear it. If you can, they've on the making of them, you can hear him snapping at people, in Christopher Lee's nicest, polite way, but snapping at people, because it was important to him, because he did know Tolkien, and it's special. I actually have him sitting in my living room.
What, actual Christopher Lee, or?
Yeah.
I hope not the actual Christopher Lee. That'd be a bit awkward.
I would if I could. I started collecting before the prices went up on them, because wow, with the new series coming out, the collection of the figures from the time of movie. You notice how I keep saying movie? I'm not going to say it. I could hear it all the way through the last episode, and I kept correcting myself. The only person who's actually said the word correctly is Emily.
The film.
And I won't say it. Yeah.
To be fair, Emily's, like I say, had Brian down there, so she's used to the northern accent pretty much.
Yeah, so. But Emily's, I can hear her saying it properly, but when we see it, I'm like, oh. No.
Don't be ashamed of where you're from, man. Stop.
It just doesn't sound right now. It's being pointed out to us. But yeah, so the toy figures that came out at the time of the movie's release, they have gone up massively in price, and I managed to get a few before that. I've gotten Aragorn in I think they're all the Two Towers. Aragorn and one of the ring wraiths. The detail of them are amazing, and I've gotten Christopher Lee's as well, and he's got what's the ball called? The eye is it the eye, or is it just a ball? I can't think.
No, it's one of the eyes, because I remember him saying there was 5 of them and they've not been accounted for, I believe.
Yes, he's got that in his hand. But he has that in his hand, and the detail of them are unreal. We've also forgot to mention another amazing character actor who is in this, Brad Dourif.
Yep, Chucky.
Yep, he's in there. He has one of my favourite scenes. I love the fellowship scene when the fellowship's created, and I cry. Like, I really do cry my eyes out at that scene. It doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, but my most favourite and the one that I like proper high five and punch the air at is when Theoden comes back when Gandalf brings him back, and you see him like changing, and then he kicks Wormtail out, and it just proper gets me right in that scene is unreal. Unreal.
So good.
I think, as we said before, the casting, like say, was second to none. Like say, Ian McKellen as Gandalf, I can't see anyone topping that. And as Emily said, Sam said before, with the new series that's coming to Amazon, that's going to be an interesting take, because I know
not getting filmed in New Zealand either.
True.
But they did. The first season's in New Zealand. The second season's going to be here.
Is it Ireland? It's going to. They've taken some places that Game of Thrones filmed in.
I think so.
They're going to Ireland,
Yeah.
Because Amazon have thrown some big shit of money at that. Like, say,
Me too. You can't half-arse it. This is Tolkien. This is, there is a reason it took 12 years for this to become what it is right now, and that you can't half-arse stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for it. I'm like seriously getting
excited. So excited.
I am tempted to throw a game. Why do I keep wanting to say Game of Thrones? I am tempted to throw a Lord of the Rings themed party for the first episode. I did it on the last series of Game of Thrones. Had a full-on Game of Thrones party. Like, I'll have to find the pictures and put them on the Facebook group. But yeah, I had like themed food and everything.
That sounds so good.
What was it? Hodoritos. That was my most favourite one. The rest of Theon, and it was sausage rolls.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah, I really went. Oh, and what was it? Muffin Jon Snow.
Oh God.
And it was.
I love it.
Yeah, and I'm really tempted to do the same for Lord of the Rings, and because I want to make the bread. What's the bread called?
Landis bread, is it?
Landis bread. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
But that's the thing, because I know, as you said, it's exciting to know we're getting more Lord of the Rings content. But if you watch the Lord of the Rings back, does it need to be retold at the moment? Because it's not
being retold.
It's not Lord of the Rings. It's before.
Right. All right.
So Lord of the Rings takes place in the Third Age. The series is taking place in the Second Age.
Yeah.
So that's that. Yeah, that's the age that the original battle with Sauron took place.
Right, all
so
right.
We could see, is it a seal door? That could be, is that coming up, is the seal door before or after? I can't remember.
I can't, there's so many names. There's so many names.
I am shocking myself that I even remember these names. Because
honestly.
I can't pronounce the basic of names sometimes.
What I want to know is if they're going to go as far back as the beginning of the Second Age, or the Battle of Numenor.
Ooh.
Where the god of the world, Aldar, I think it is the name of the world, isn't it?
I think so.
Apparently bitch slapped Numenor so hard that it went from a flat earth to round. So
all right,
I'd like to see how they do that.
Yeah.
What a way to get around a flat earth.
I know.
The whole round.
Literally the whole time. Like, I think in the first age, it's like, yeah, it's a flat earth and everything else. And then, apparently it was such a cataclysmic event that
turned it round.
It literally turned it round. And that's why there's only one way to get to the Undying Lands now. Because it used to be accessible very easily because it was flat.
The Undying Lands used to confuse the life out of us. I didn't get what was happening at the end. It wasn't. I don't feel like I had it explained to us where I could understand why Frodo was going with the elves, but where was he going and what happens after he goes there. So I hope when I read the books that I might get a better answer. Because I generally still am confused. Like, I don't know where he went.
When I first watched it, like, obviously because I watched Return of the King first, so I saw that end bit and I was like, so they go into like heaven? Are they dying? Like, what? I don't understand. But from what I understand, the Undying Lands are just essentially a land of immortality where the elves are allowed to go because they've been given permission to do so. Where they can just go and live I think free. I don't know if their bodies die, but from how it's described, I think their bodies do die and they just live as free spirits. So essentially, it is kind of heaven, but not
like a physical plane that then turns into a spiritual.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's not. I don't know.
It's not. It's not, and it's not. It's a beautiful ending, and
No way.
It's just, Sam just breaks my heart in that scene where he realizes his friends.
He does go there in the end, though. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh my god!
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah, literally. I think they mentioned
it was the last boat that ever went. Sam was
Tolkien did like a little short thing. It's in one of his other books that his son published. Sam just lived his life. I think he had 13 children all in all. And then when he got old, he went over and met Frodo again.
I'm so happy.
I'm just glad they didn't film it, because that's my biggest issue with Return of the King: the 15 endings that we didn't need. Because it ended, then kept on going, then ended, then kept on going.
Oh yes, I get what you mean. I was like, what are you on about? I get what you mean. There was a lot of endings,
but the Undying Lands are so important, really important, because the hobbits have no idea what it even is for a long time, and then they're important anyway, especially in the series that's coming up. They're going to be even more important, because if they do the Battle of Numenor, the Undying Lands is the whole reason why it's happening.
Yeah.
Because I think they're called the Numenorians, which is a mouthful.
If they're not, they are called that now.
Essentially, the Numenorians were the first humans, and they were like superhumans, so really strong. They could live for like 500 years. They were really like tall and big. And they were given all these gifts by the Valar, I believe, which are like the angels of this universe. But the big bad, I forget his name again, but corrupted them and made them want to have immortality. It wasn't enough that they were given everything else. They were like, oh, we want immortality as well. Why do the elves get it? Can't we have it? Sort of thing. So then the big bad was like, all right, well, let's go and fight them and take the Undying Lands away from them. And that's the Battle of Numenor.
See,
that's why
that's got my interest now. That's got my.
I am in awe at the moment. I'm like, one, I want to go and read my books now. This happens all the time.
But that's why the god, the big god, he has got a name. I keep forgetting his name. Of the world is like, what are you doing? I've given you all of this stuff, and now you want immortality as well? No.
Yeah.
Slaps them. Done. They're gone. And then a couple of Numenorians survived, and those that survived were still loyal to their allies, so the elves. They didn't want immortality. They weren't interested. They were still loyal to their allies and everything, and they grouped together to fight the big bad and get rid of him.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name. I feel so bad. But they Aragorn is descended from the Numenorians, which is why Aragorn can survive until he's 250.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense, because that again is not really explained as to how he has because they do say his age at some point. But let's talk.
He's
about
80
Aragorn.
Something, isn't he?
Yeah, he's old when this starts. But let's talk about Aragorn for a second. And that beautiful man that plays him.
I say I do find him hot in this.
Vigo.
I am comfortable in my masculinity to admit that he is a beautiful person.
Oh, absolutely! I watched the Green Book on Sunday night, and I could see him, but I could not hear him. I am waiting for that Danish accent to come out, and I am like, where are? And then he's got this mafioso Italian coming, and I was like, wow, mate, you've got range, because that was very convincing. But I love him in this. I remember when he used to get promotional stuff in Serial.
Yeah,
and they had promotional stuff for Lord of the Rings, and it was a hologram image. And this hologram image I had was Aragorn walking through the doors. Where was he at? It's when he comes back after his little jaunt where he gets in the water. I can't think of where he's at. Rohan. Yeah?
Rohan? I think it's Rohan.
Yeah, because I think he's dead type thing.
So. Yeah, it's I think he's dead and he walks through the doors, and that's the holographic image of him just constantly walking through the doors and then just standing there like, what up? And I'm like, I literally just with this image just back and forth all the time.
I hope someone does edit in him saying what up. That would be
what up?
I
love it.
But
does anyone unknown at the time?
I think he'd done stuff, but because he's been in like a few films. He was in Young Guns too as well. Going back, he was one of the cowboys that chased after Billy the Kid. But
isn't that the case though with a lot of Danish and Scandinavian actors? They do a lot of work in there, like a lot of work. Like if you look at Stellan Skarsgård, his filmography is massive anyway. But then you look at the stuff he's done in his hometown, and it's just huge. It's like it's like that man has worked, and I think he's the same.
It's the same with like Mads Mikkelsen, yeah.
Oh, yes. One of the best Hannibal portrayals ever.
He's a fantastic actor. I love him.
Just put him in anything, to be honest. Just him, Viggo Mortensen, Alexander Skarsgård, because I don't mind him. I'm just thinking of Danish and Scandinavian actors. Just have them all together.
Is anyone else as well? Like this is just me, like say, being all nerdy and geeky. When in the Two Towers, when he kicks the goblin's helmet and points out that's the part he broke his toe on.
It's the Fellowship. Is it the Fellowship? Is it the end of the Fellowship? No, or is it the beginning of Two Towers?
I thought it was the Two Towers when he got to the pile of
it is, man, because it's because Merry and Pippin have gone, and all this sea is because they bump into the Rohirrians. Yes, it is, and he points out that's where he broke his toe. I think it's funny.
But what I love about Viggo though is that he was the last one to turn up.
Yes, he was. He was not originally cast.
No, he wasn't. They were going a completely different route with Aragorn, and then they decided last minute that it didn't work. Yeah. So the studio were like, right, okay, you need to hire someone else, and he had to literally on the day he arrived convince the studio that he was the right choice. And luckily the first scene he did wasn't a talking role, it was the battle of the ring race in Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah, it was well Reunion really did bring a lot of facts and figures.
It did. I was like, it's so helpful.
That's quite interesting. So the Michael J. Fox them during Back to the Future then.
They did. I don't think they filmed anything with the original actor, did they? No, they just, I think because there was obviously a lot of rehearsals, a lot. And I think he was part of the rehearsals, but I don't think he was actually part of the filming of it. But on the Reunion with Viggo Mortensen does not know how to use a camera. Because it was all over the place.
He's like, I think he's holding it, isn't he?
He had like positioned it below him, above him, in front of him. It was all over the place.
So funny.
What about the other hobbits? You know, the other two who don't get a big mention, Merry and Pippin.
They're so lovely,
aren't they?
Have you seen their podcast that they do?
No, I have got it. I listen to so many, but I do have it. It is Lord of the Rings based, isn't it?
Yeah, it's called The Friendship Onion, if nobody knows. They did a one recently where they had Elijah on with them, and it was literally it was like watching just old friends talking to each other. They just rambled on about anything and everything.
So sounds like us then, so it's fine.
I absolutely love them. The characters themselves, I wasn't really interested. Like, I didn't really care, and it wasn't until I think when Merry wants to prove his worth, and I'm kind of, that's when my opinion started to change, because they do come across as very selfish little hobbits. Like, you know, they're so like wrapped up in Hobbiton that it's hard for them to break that. But when they start, like, especially with Treebeard, you see the change starting to
that's what I was going to say as well. Like with the hobbits as well, all the hobbits go through the journeys on the film. Like obviously with Sam and Frodo, like I say, Sam is unwavering throughout, and you see his inner strength. But the two that goes through the biggest journey, because at the start they are two little kids, annoying, being fun, and at the end they're grown up. The like I say, the men in a way, like the people of the world, and they've went through that journey, and that's like I say, what I got from them characters told that story in a beautiful way that you weren't quite expecting.
Yeah. When I first watched it, I thought they were brothers.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
That's the relationship they give across. They show on screen. I was like, oh, they're brothers. And then I actually read the book, and I was like, oh, it's Merry Brandybuck and Peregrine Took. So they're not brothers.
But they are. No, Peregrine Took is related to Frodo very distantly, or is it the other way around? Is it cousins?
Yeah. Because Frodo does come from the Tooks, from Bilbo's side. So Bilbo's dad was a Took, right?
I think
no,
so.
or was his mum a Took? I can't remember.
It might have been. It would have been his mum.
He was a son of a Took. That will keep it that way.
Yeah.
It would have been his mum, because then it wouldn't have made sense that Bilbo was a Baggins if his dad was a Took.
Because throughout the Hobbit, it literally, like, Tolkien literally constantly mentions, it's like, oh, well, that's his Took side coming out, or that's his Baggins side coming out, because every time he's like, oh, I wish I was at home with my nice fire, he's like, that's his Baggins side, and then when he's brave, it's his Took side. It's like, oh.
No, I said them. It's a little details there. What it does enhance and bring the story together, but. I know we haven't even mentioned the name of the person I want to talk about next, because he was absolutely amazing. And you don't actually, you see him very, like, early, is Andy Serkis as Gollum. Because after that performance in Gollum, he is the go-to guy for any type of creature or CGI.
Because he developed the technology they use for Gollum. He developed that, so it made sense to use him in other carnations of that for that technology. But Gollum is just, I love him. I just want to give him a big cuddle.
Other than, like as I said,
I'm sure he would accept it.
Then scratch my eyes out.
True. Before Lord of the Rings, there wasn't many CGI characters that you cared for. Probably the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, potentially. But like I say, as Gollum,
not CGI, they're all real. That's real. All real.
I'm going to spoil your childhood now.
I'm only joking. I watched the movies that made us.
I think Peter Jackson said, like, when they were talking about the animation for Gollum, he was like, I want it to be, bless you. I want it to be Jar Jar Binks, but bigger.
Yeah,
that's literally what he said, because at the time, Jar Jar Binks was kind of the best animation they had, and
if that is saying something, because if you go back and
it's terrible,
it's horrendous. He stands out of that screen so noticeably, like you can tell he is not there. But with Gollum, it's so real because they are using an actual person. The features are real, and that technology cannot be touched at all.
Yeah, what I love is that, like, because Andy did such an amazing job, and because obviously then, like you said, he developed the technology further. When they did The Hobbit, he was a second director for The Hobbit. Like, Peter Jackson was off shooting scenes with, like, the others, and then Andy Serkis was off shooting another scene in another location with the motion capture and everything else. So it's like,
it makes total sense.
Yeah, so that's how they got the Hobbit done faster, because they had two directors doing scenes at once.
But the Gollum that you see in Fellowship is not Andy Serkis.
No, it was a different.
He was not cast until later, but that is that because they generally did not know what was happening with Gollum.
No, he originally was just going to be a voice, wasn't he, Andy? And then they decided last minute, let's try this motion capture stuff. And it's okay.
So we're talking about Andy Serkis's Gollum, but something has literally just caught my eye on my phone. Did you know who's directing Venom?
Andy Serkis.
I did not know that.
Well, Venom 2, Let the Carnage begin. So it'll be interesting to see his take on, like, say, if he's going to be using his body or his technology towards that. So it makes kind of sense to get.
I am actually gobsmacked.
I haven't seen the first one.
You should. It's really good.
Oh, okay.
And that's saying something. I don't like Tom Hardy.
You don't like Tom Hardy?
Oh no! Here we go.
Wait a minute. That's fine.
I don't. No, I don't. And I don't. I'm starting to change my mind on him because Venom was really good, but I'm sorry, that man, his acting abilities in the past have not been great, and I can barely understand a word he's saying.
And that's coming from a northerner.
Exactly.
I think he's really good in Legend, but
do you know what? I hate to admit it, but I can't. Yeah, he's
Did you know in that film there's a lad from Rye in Sunderland actually in Legend with Tom Hardy, Richie Riddell?
Who? Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he grew up, like I say, not too far away. So he's been in a few films. He was in an episode of Misfits where he played a gorilla that got changed into a human. So yes, he's a Sunderland lad.
Well,
nice.
Taron Egerton, who's in that, who obviously played Elton John, me and my sister joke that we have a connection to him. We don't at all, but he's the nephew of someone my mum works with.
Oh,
and it's like, yeah, we know him. We don't.
Bless.
But there we go. There's my little Taron Egerton story. Well, sorry, I was looking at something because the Andy Serkis on, if you go to the Google, like the cast of Lord of the Rings, it has Gollum and Witch King, and I didn't know. And then I clicked on it, and then I saw Venom come up, and I'm like, what? I'm sure we did a reaction to that trailer. Why was it not mentioned in there? But he was the Witch King too.
The director.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
But I didn't know about that, The Hobbit, though. That's quite interesting what you were saying, Emily, about him being actually assistant director on that.
No, me neither.
I was like, you know me, I'm a massive film nerd because I want to make films one day. So it's like, I really wanted to know how they filmed The Hobbit. So I was watching, they did, this time around for The Hobbit, they did a video diary on YouTube. So I think they did like every 3 months, I think they had a video for each 3 months. And they showed how they filmed in the Hobbit hole, for example, in order to get the perspective of the sizes. They built 2 sets exactly the same, and then they had Ian McKellen in one, and then all the dwarves and Martin Freeman in the other, and they had dual cameras, so they filmed with the 2 cameras at the same time. So the perspective of Ian McKellen being bigger and then being smaller worked in tandem.
It's unreal, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like it's good that
technology. The difference in technology for The Hobbit that they did for The Lord of the Rings is just incredible.
Yeah, I still think Lord of the Rings looks prettier than The Hobbit, but that's probably just
but I think it's because The Lord of the Rings was more physical stuff. Like, you know, it's fair enough that obviously, I just hit my microphone. It's fair enough that obviously with The Hobbit they wanted to use the technology that was there, and that's fine. But you can tell that it's not real.
Yeah.
Whereas with Lord of the Rings, so many more physical elements to it.
I find Lord of the Rings very, not gritty, but I think real is the right word, because The Hobbit is very shiny. And look at all of our new stuff and what we've cleaned up, because the world a lot cleaner back then. It's a lot shiny and bright. I have never actually seen the last of The Hobbit.
What, Battle of Five Armies?
No, never seen it.
It's okay, you don't need to see it.
That's all right then.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. I did watch I recently, because when I have a day where I don't want to particularly talk to people or see people, I will literally put Lord of the Rings on, because I know fine well it's going to keep me there all day. But I tried to do The Hobbit again, and I watched the first one, and I'm like, I don't feel the same as I do when I watch Lord of the Rings.
The issue I have with The Hobbit is, why did they make half of the dwarves good looking?
Right, yeah.
half of them look like dwarves, and they look like how they're described. Like they're a little bit more gritty in the film. In the books, they turn up and they're like, oh, this one was wearing a green cape and he had a long white beard. This one was wearing a red cape and he had a long brown beard. Killy and Philly both wear blue capes and they have long blonde beards. Thorin turns up. He's got a dark blue cape with a gold crest on it. He thinks he's really important. And he's a bit of a brat. Like literally in the films they made him this dark broody dude who's like, oh my god, my family, I need the minds back. And it's like in the book he's like, yeah, you're right. Like, he's pretty chill. He's just a bit of a brat. Like he thinks he's too important for things. But like they made him really dark in the film, and I'm not sure why.
I like I said, this is again talking back when originally first started talking about the films when like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter came out at the same time. The Hobbit films had a very Harry Potter feel for me in aspect. I don't think it was aimed at kids, but there was definitely elements there for the younger audience to enjoy. And again, the Hobbit book isn't that wide. I know that they brought in different aspects like the necromancer and stuff to bulk it out. But again, it didn't need to be a 3-film.
It did not need to be 3 films, because the Battle of the Five Armies is literally 5 pages of the book. Because
that's saying something then.
Literally,
that just shows how unimportant it is.
Because Tolkien wasn't interested in the battle itself. It's all from Bilbo's perspective. It's his journey, it's his adventure. And right at the beginning of the battle, he gets knocked out. So he spends the whole thing unconscious. So he goes down, like literally when he wakes up, everything's over. Thorin's dying. Killy and Philly are already dead. He goes and says goodbye to Thorin. He dies. And then they're like, okay, so this is what happened. And then literally they just give him like a summary of the battle. And that's it. Whereas in the films, they were like, yeah, let's make a whole film about this battle. That was completely unnecessary. Bilbo was not there for any of it, so I don't know why they put it in the film that he was there for the whole thing and he was fighting. It's like, no.
Well, let's talk about the dwarf in the movie. Oh my god, Gimli, son of Gloin. Because John Rhys Davies?
John Rhys Davies, yes.
Probably the biggest, bulkiest.
Yeah, from Indiana Jones fame.
But he's tall, he's bulky, and yet could not tell.
No.
Because he's short and stubby, and he looks amazing, and I absolutely love him and Legolas's relationship, because they two should not work together. At all.
That was the whole point of dwarf and like an elf hating. But like I said, they're getting a bit of a bromance towards the end, which was always great to see.
That still only counts as one.
I am not now a fan of Orlando Bloom, because he really peaked in these films. This is like the epitome of like his career is the Lord of the Rings, because afterwards didn't pan out great, and I did not like the fact that he was in the Caribbean.
I liked him in Pirates of the Caribbean.
I don't even like him in that. I just want to punch him in the face.
I want to punch. Don't get me wrong. I wanted to punch him in the face, but I have a love for those films, so I kind of forgive it.
I just can't.
It was one of my favorite rides at Disney as well. So yeah, I've got a soft spot for the Pirates.
Don't get us wrong. I do like the Pirates films, and I loved the 4th one. Was it the 4th one with Javier Bardem? And oh wow, that was amazing. Loved it, because guess what? Orlando Bloom wasn't in it. But I genuinely loved him as Legolas, but I hated the fact that he came back on The Hobbit, because they don't yes, he did not need to be there, but age-wise, he obviously should be a lot younger. He looks a hell of a lot older. They don't have the Marvel technique when it comes down to de-aging people, because he looked haggard. Like, he looked like he'd been on a bender for about 10 days straight and then decided to rock up.
You know what I think it is as well, is that in obviously Lord of the Rings, he's wearing contact lenses because they made his eyes blue, but his eyes are like deep blue in Lord of the Rings. Whereas in The Hobbit, they gave him really bright blue contacts, and it made him look older somehow.
It doesn't, no, because it was that striking, he had that striking look about him. but just general, like he just doesn't look right. It doesn't fit right.
It's not even in the book.
Yeah.
Then he didn't need to be there.
Like both him and what's her name? What was her name?
Thingy Tilly is she's a wasp in Ant-Man and Wasp.
Evil. I can't say her name.
Evangeline.
That's it.
Yeah. But no good names. But not very
Tauriel. Her name was Tauriel in the film. She's not in it either.
Do you know what? Casting wise, elf wise, she looks elf. She looks.
Oh,
elvish.
she was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. She's a Sylvan elf as well, so that's why Sylvan. That's why she looks different from the others. She doesn't have like the bright blonde hair or anything because she's Sylvan.
I went on a deep dive with elves on because there's a YouTube channel who literally just. Oh, they've got one for Game of Thrones. They've got one for Lord of the Rings, and it is a deep dive on elves. And I'm practically sitting there with a notepad, just trying to make sure that I take everything in. And I still haven't taken it all in because I couldn't understand the difference between Galadriel and Elrond because I was like, they live in two different places. Why would they not be together? She's a high elf, isn't she? She is. She's the highest of elves. And I was like, oh, I just wanted to know more. See, this is the best part about Lord of the Rings. You've got so much that you can learn from it. It's not just a story about two hobbits walking from point A to point B. And if that's what you take away from this film, you are not paying attention because there is so much more that is in it that you learn from. It's like
I'll take that backhanded compliment there a little bit, but
I need to know though, what's your opinion of Thranduil? Because the moment I saw him appear on screen, I was a bit like,
is that the
Legolas's dad?
No, right, okay, he's beautiful. Like that's not.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know.
That man is stunning. Oh yes, absolutely.
As soon as he opened his mouth, I was like, okay, all right.
I see.
I've got the time of day for you.
Yes, no, I didn't know who that was. But I've just been looking on the cast, and he was on the cast for some reason, but he's obviously not in the Lord of the Rings. No. There is one scene that I get choked up at, and it's so pathetic. It's not pathetic, but it's not major. It's not big. It's just before the Battle of Helm's Deep, when the elves show up, and Aragorn goes to meet them, and he says the elf's name, and it's almost normal. I'm sure he calls him Michael Anthony or something like that. And he says at one time, there was one time elves and men stood together, and we come here to honour that pact. And I'm literally sitting there with tears running down my face because all these elves in unison just turn, and I'm like, oh, that's so impactful. Like,
do you know why that is though? Because they don't really explain it in the film.
No, they don't, do they?
Aragorn actually lived in Rivendell with the elves.
Mm-hmm. Well, I kind of knew that because he wouldn't have known Arwen if he didn't. There was a connection between the two, but they are so secretive on Aragorn's past because he's Striker when you first meet him because he's a ranger, but then he's got this other past where he's with Arwen, and then he knows the elves, but they don't give you.
Yeah, from what I know. I don't know if his dad was a king. I can't remember, but his dad got his line of. He's from the line of Isildur, so he's the rightful king of Gondor. Yeah, so when he was born, his dad got killed, I believe, either when he was out hunting orcs or he was in a battle of some kind, and him and his mother fled to Rivendell, and he grew up in Rivendell with all the elves. So that's why he's so familiar with them, because he literally grew up with them, and they called him a completely different name.
Oh, right.
And I think Elrond does say his elven name when you see him in Fellowship. I think.
Oh, I'll have to look out for that because he speaks Elvish and he knows Legolas. Him and Legolas have something, like they know each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I think,
just
but I think I think that's the difference between the books and the films. The films always leave a little bit for your imagination, shall we say? So you always go back and think, oh, how is this back? And then you can go back and make your own mind up or make your own opinion. But a book,
when it comes to fantasy, you don't need that because the lore is already laid down. Mm-hmm. So you know, and with any fantasy genre, it's already there written down as to what it should be, and it shouldn't be a mystery. You should know it because it's part of the bigger story.
Fantasy is so, in my opinion, it's kind of like sci-fi as well. It's so complicated that, to be honest, you just need it mapped out for you. Mm-hmm. Like with Star Wars, for example, I'm going to use a Star Wars example. As much as people don't like the prequels, it was kind of helpful to see everything mapped out.
Yeah. Oh no, I completely understand
how it translates. But even though, you know, a diehard fan might say, "Oh, they weren't necessary. You don't use the prequels." I thought they were pretty helpful in terms of mapping out story.
I love the prequels for that reason, and I said this on our Star Wars episode. He might not.
Just take away the midi-chlorians, I'll be okay.
I knew he was going to say that. I knew he was going to say that.
Bullshit.
But I said this on our Star Wars episode. I love the prequels because it lays the groundwork down. You do need to know. They mention, you know, Leia. The first time you see Leia, she mentions the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. That the first time you see her on screen is through R2-D2's projector, and she mentions the Clone Wars. And then you've got the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars is one of my favorite Star Wars films. I don't care what anyone says. I absolutely don't. You? Well, it's not because we did a list and Rogue One is, but
I love Rogue One.
It's just it's unreal. But I do. You are right. Fantasy needs to be laid and mapped out for you because it's so in depth. And this is what gets me about the fantasy genre and the likes of Tolkien and George R.R. Martin. How the fuck does their brains work? How do you
because it's the life work. It's honestly, it probably started right now when he was 12, like planning it out, and like I said,
every time I look at the Lord of the Rings universe, I learn something new, and I'm like, how did this come from a singular man's brain? How did this man not only come up with an entire universe of creatures and places, he invented languages.
Yeah, that's the weird. Well, I was going to say weird, but not weird. Sorry.
No, but it's right though. But the process of Lord of the Rings was over 12 years, and that is simply because he was teaching at the same time. He was earning a living, so not only is he teaching, he's then going in and diving back into, like, George R.R. Martin. This is his full-time job. This is what he does.
He can't fucking finish a book.
Let's not. Let's not. He will bring it out in his own time, and it will be amazing because it will finish the story the way it's meant to be finished. But there was a South Bank show once, and it was the life of George R.R. Martin, and he has two houses. He has his home, his family home, and then he has his work home. And in his work home is, you know, them big filing cabinets, the big metal ones. He has hundreds of them in this house, and it's every section is every part of King's Landing, from languages, from people to costumes to colours, and it is all laid out in these filing cabinets. So if he is stuck in a person, he will go to the filing cabinet and find the character and go, oh yeah, and that's and I'm like, I know, but imagine that's George R.R. Martin's process because he learned it from Tolkien. How did Tolkien do it?
How does it come from one person's brain? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense, honestly.
That's the hardest thing to do. Like, say, I've tried writing short stories before, and like, say, I'm no, like, say, great writer and stuff, but I struggle just to map out, like, to base in like a story linear line, because I like jump from point A to point C. Sometimes it's like, oh shit, I missed out B. But
I'm
just
literally the same.
Yeah, it's.
Oh, I can't write short stories to save my life.
I'm literally in the process of writing a story right now, and I keep getting stuck and like hitting a wall because my brain is like seeing this like vast thing, but I just can't put it into words.
Yeah.
So it's like
See,
I
my
read
problem.
Tolkien, and I'm like, ha.
See, that's not my problem when it comes to writing. I can write the words. I've been writing since 2014. I can write words and I can do descriptions, but I can't come up with original concept because my brain is so mushed with the stuff that I love. I just feel I start plagiarizing because I don't have an original idea because there's too many great works already packed in there. But I can describe something, I can write something in description, I can review how I feel about it, but I cannot do original ideas.
There's a phrase that I was taught when I went to university when I was learning film. We had the producer of Stanley Kubrick films come in.
Oh, wow.
Oh, he's the most wonderful little man I've ever met in my life. But he said a phrase, and I've never forgotten it. And he said, "Nothing is written; everything is rewritten."
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and it's absolutely true. There's
no such thing as an original concept anymore.
No.
He said, "You will always draw from inspiration from something you've seen or something you've heard." Is that because every song has been sung? Is that but it's you putting your spin on it that counts.
Personal to you as well. Like, say if it means something to you, then that's the way to go.
Exactly.
But yes, but that's why we started these type of discussions, these type of conversations, because like say with the whole, like say as we said before, with the whole lockdown situation, it's been harder to have these type of discussions where you would normally go out and think, and it's such a breathtaking to have other people's opinions as well, and like say and even though we don't always agree, it's about like say being respectful and like say fair enough being jokingly about it, but it's always nice to have like say another view on something, like say even if it's not a new view, it's just like say having that kind of connection as well. It's what brings people together. I sound all soppy.
Yeah. No, if we all love the same things, it would be a very it would just be boring. It really would. I love open conversations about things that I don't necessarily like, but I am more than willing to listen to you. And if you can sell me on it, then I will go for it.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, baby.
And I did it, and I finished it, and I'm rewatching it again. But yeah, I love these type of conversations because now you've got me hyped, Emily. To go, I want to go and read the books. I want to know more. And see, this is why I love it. I love the fact that I can have a conversation with somebody. I think that I know what I'm like, and I know my stuff, and then I speak to someone else, and I'm like, oh my god, I know absolutely nothing. I need to go and get myself all logicked up again. I hate not knowing. Do you know what it is? That's my problem. I hate not knowing things.
But no, it's interesting because like I say, I always knew, like since like I've known Emily, known how passionate she is about like say anything in pop culture, and like say when like say the fantasy elements come in, you always like say see a light up and stuff. So it was always interesting when this type of topic was going to come up. It was one of the first persons I thought about to get.
If you ever talk about Jim Henson films, I'm there.
Labyrinth will come up one day, don't worry.
And Dark Crystal, don't forget that.
I'm still scared to watch that.
You can do a hard sale on that one because I've not seen Dark Crystal and it actually terrifies the life out of us.
Oh, okay,
I probably did watch it as a kid, but as an adult, I can't rewatch it. I only watched Willow at the beginning of the year because I was scared of that too.
Mad
I get it. The Skeksis are scary to look at.
They are when you're a 5-year-old kid as well, and you've not seen any aspects like this before.
Dark Crystal is very complicated and very dark. Hence the name.
but when you think of Jim Henson, you think of Kermit and Miss Piggy, and then you've got Kitty Cat.
Yes, my kitten.
I'm so distracted. You look like my Beatrice.
Oh no, she's gone. Never mind.
Oh, black and white cat look like my Beatrice. Yeah, so you think of like these light and fluffy characters, and then you see that, and it's like,
There's definitely two sides to Jim Henson. I love it.
Oh yeah, I think Jim Henson's responsible for a lot of kids nightmares and stuff, especially for the 80s and early 90s. It was a big aspect. A lot.
But he's
Even the Sesame Street was scary as well.
What?
Oh,
What Sesame Street were you watching?
Sesame Street News was scary.
Well, he also brought a lot of joy because A Muppet's Christmas Carol is an absolute classic, and it just brings me so much joy and happiness. So yes, he had both sides to him.
Yes.
So are we going to wrap it up?
Yeah. So are we happy with the Lord of the Rings?
I was just gonna say, like, because we were talking about like everything is rewritten, like we take so much inspiration now from Tolkien. Like he established what most people like depict elves as now. He established what dwarves are now seen as. Also, speaking of dwarves, you know that he was a language expert and he was a teacher in languages. So the plural for a dwarf is dwarfs,
right?
With an FS. But he hated it because it didn't make any sense, because plurals in other things would be a VES. So he was like, why is it not dwarves? So when he made The Hobbit, he purposefully put dwarves. And every time he sent his transcript or whatever it is to the copywriters to get it sorted for publishing, they kept correcting it to dwarfs. And he was like, no, I want dwarves. He's like, because that's how it's supposed to be. So it was like, that was his little rebellion in his book.
Awesome. So if you don't have Tolkien, you don't have the likes of George. And I'm not a massive into fantasy unless it is.
Well, to be fair, without Tolkien, we don't have any fantasy elements, if you think about it.
No, you're right. And I was just going to use George R.R. Martin as an example because he's the only one I know who's elaborated on a universe like Tolkien has. Obviously his inspiration is taken very differently. It's more, it's more English history than it is actually like made up fantasy type. But yeah, you don't have the likes of him without Tolkien. He is an amazing.
Think of anything, any form of media, like Skyrim takes a lot of inspiration from how certain creatures are depicted in Tolkien's universe. You've got D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, like they definitely have taken the concept of elves that Tolkien has established and expanded on it, and then made like different types of elves from that, and then they've made the dwarves. Dwarves are pretty much exactly how Tolkien described them in D&D.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, again, like I say, I know I joke. I do love the films. Like I say, they're not me go-to. Like I say, Return of the King, I've always had issues with just because of the end and the way the end. I know it's got to tie up so much things, but I still, like, I always love the Clerks reference where it says it's just a film about walking and there is only one return and it's Return of the Jedi. So I just get that in there.
You have to get the Clerks 2 bit in, but I was thinking to myself, if he brings this up, what's my answer to it? And it's what I said earlier. If all you're taking away from Lord of the Rings is walking, then you are not watching this film properly.
No, but that's me told. Like I say, again, it's always interesting, like say, seeing other people's aspects and views on it, which again totally get. I know why it means so much, and the passion comes from you two guys is absolutely amazing. But yes, I would love to say I was a huge fan. I would say I'm a fan, if that makes sense.
Have we converted you?
I'll take
Is that
it.
what you're saying?
No, not yet. I've enjoyed the discussion, but I'm still, like, after watching it this week, it was a hard watch. And again, I did enjoy it, but I wasn't in a rush.
It's a beautiful watch for me. I just sit there and I lavish in it. I'm just like, I don't want this to end. I don't want to leave Rivendell. I want to sit and I want to be in that meeting. I want to be sat amongst them when he says, "You will be known as the Fellowship of the Rings." I want to be there.
Let me be a part of it.
Just me and Emily standing in the background going, "What's going on?"
So we'll leave it there. So thank you so much for joining us, Emily. I know,
Emily.
Thank you for having me.
I know your Friday night's normally your streaming night, so thank you for, like I say, taking the time.
I didn't know. You didn't say that.
No, sorry about it. I wanted to do this.
But, yes. And
we'll make sure all of Emily's details are down below as well. Get on our stream and get to our Etsy shop.
that's fine. If you just send us a link, like I say, a text with all the details, I'll make sure it's in the comments and everything. But yes, again, if anyone's listening, I hope you've enjoyed that as well. Like I said, it's been an interesting take, not just, like I say, a glorified love fest, which sometimes does happen.
We normally do, yeah. It's been just, it's lovely being talking about something different that is not within, because obviously nerd is a very wide range, and we have our specifics of what we love, and it tends to be comic books, Marvel, DC, horror, very lot of horror, and it's just lovely to jump into something different, and have someone else to help me and back me up, but also have that different, that other, someone other than Paul to tell me how crap this film is, because that's how I honestly thought today was going to go,
I'm not that
when we said we were going to do Lord of the Rings, I was like, great, I'm going to have to get the defense out, I'm going to have to, get me statements ready. And then when he said someone else was joining us that loved it, I was like, I don't need to do that now. I'm good.
I've got someone to fight my corner.
Exactly.
To be fair, I've learned through the last few years, never argue with the welfare, so it never ends well. But yes, like I say, again, please follow us on our Facebook page, Nerdy Up North community. Like I say, the Instagram's taken off as well, Nerdy Up North. Follow us on YouTube, please. Subscriptions are going up. We just went over the 150 subscribers.
And thank you everyone for the subscriptions and also watching last week's. Last week was, I think, the funnest we have. I love doing these podcasts, but last week was just unreal. The energy was just amazing, and we were buzzing when we came off that one. So thank you everyone for watching that one. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
So again, please subscribe. Like I say, we're on iTunes as well, Spotify. Just search Nerdy Up North. We're getting quite decent, and we hit the 2,900 member mark on the Facebook group, which absolutely blows my mind. I think we only started this 7 months ago, which is just mental. But yes, and again, like I say, remember, tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Stay nerdy, everyone. Take care. Thank you, Emily. Bye.